guys, my name is Adriana and I'm part of the COBIS MUN marketing team. Today we had our first mock session to help our delegate team as well as give you an idea of how things will go in the actual event. We had a lot of fun doing this and we strongly advise you try your own mock sessions. Because you know what they say, practice makes perfect.
The UNHCR committee is now officially in session. We will begin with the roll call. The delegates are asked to answer with either present or present and voting. Austria.
Present and voting.
Germany.
Present and voting.
Hungary.
Present and voting.
We will now proceed to the opening speeches. Austria, you have the floor.
Dear delegates and honorable chair, on the topic of Syrian refugees, Austria would like to bring up the following points. From the beginning of the crisis, that started in 2015 April, Austria has been humanitarily responsible for mostly Syrian refugees rather than Iraq and Afghanistan. We used to take in approximately 150 refugees per day, but this number has risen to 1,000. We have tents that were set up by the government, but as not predicted, these weren't enough. So one ski resort even opened to open their dorms for the refugees. We had also a housing complex built that was mainly accepted for 2,000 people, but this number has now risen to 3,000 people. We keep on trying to improve our camps and giving the people great living conditions. We managed to have 2 toilets for approximately 140 men, and this has also not only helped the refugees, but also the people in Austria, as they have become more open-minded and free liberal people than they used to be. Civilians have contributed to them, not only by the state, but also by providing them with clothes and even inviting them to stay with them, as there are not many people, and there are many places where the refugees can stay. The coldest and rainiest season on record happened this year, but Austria still managed to provide shelter and food for all the refugees coming in.
Thank you, delegate. We have now exceeded the time. Thank you for your... Are you yielding the floor?
Yes, I yield the floor to Germany.
Dear delegates and honorable chair, today we are discussing the topic of Syrian refugee crisis, and this is what Germany has to say. Germany has been the first of many countries to welcome refugees from war-torn countries with abundant care and concern. In the past, we have offered rations and monetary funds to any and all refugees, immigrants inside our borders. However, our country is reaching the point at which we can no longer sustain any more refugees due to the fact that we had an organizational problem. A major issue is adding to our decision of no longer accepting refugees is the fact that our authorities no longer have the resources or time to rapidly provide registration, funds, secure accommodation, health services, and identification to all refugees, 200,000 of whom arrived in September alone. This being said, we will still keep on looking after all the accepted refugees until they can maintain a comfortable and productive life as working citizens of Germany, or until all major issues in their home country have been resolved. In the near future, Germany would like to accept 500,000 more per year for a few years. We as a country will be accepting this great disproportionate share.
Thank you, delegate. We have exceeded the time. Hungary, you have the floor.
Dear delegates and honorable chair, due to its geographical position, Hungary is being overwhelmed by the influx of Syrian refugees, and that is something our country wants to limit. We are a small country with limited resources who will not be able to sustain the predicted millions of refugees who are to come over the years, so we defend our borders. We have already accepted over approximately 250,000 refugees this year. Any more would become a problem, be it to the comfort of Hungary's people or to our capability to manage the resources in order to accommodate everybody. We are not turning away the refugees. We are merely following regulations. Since we are unable to take in the Syrians permanently, they will be registered and applied for asylum in other safe countries. We can only act as a transit state. We have temporarily closed our borders until all the refugees can be relocated. The ones who have managed to find a stable home and source of income in our country shall not be displaced. We wish to help. However, we are unprepared. Hungary has never faced a demanding crisis, thus we lack camps and other facilities needed to accommodate the refugees. Until then, we will not accept any more asylum seekers. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate of Hungary. We will now move on to lobbying, which will last for the next session. We will now proceed to formal caucus. The time set for each speaker is 1.5 minutes. As a result of lobbying, we have received 2 resolutions. Therefore, there are 2 main submitters. If Germany can proceed to the floor to present their resolution.
So, hello dear delegates and honorable chair. Germany is aware of the fact that 9 million refugees have fled Syria since the conflict started in March 2011. We are declaring that every refugee has the right to claim asylum in the country they arrive in, even if they got there illegally. Noting with regret that since January 2015 until August 2015, 3,000 refugees have died at sea on their way to Europe. We are deeply alarmed by the fact that very few refugees arrive to Europe safely. We are recognizing the organization of funds and resources in countries that home refugees. Germany strongly urges all countries in the UNHCR committee should support the formation of a commission to address the building and maintaining effective asylum and protection system. A. Countries involved will ensure conditions and procedures that are adequate for responding to asylum seekers' specific needs: shelter, food, job opportunities, and sanitation. Commission states that there are clear guidelines that each country needs to follow, such as providing resources to countries that have availability of space but lack resources. Transit countries should provide safe, reliable transport to host countries. 2. Germany recommends that each country has a quota on number of refugees received. A. Border controls should be set up to monitor the intake of refugees per country. And B. The quota has to be based on the GDP of the country. If a country has a higher GDP, the number of refugees taken a country should be higher. We urge you to vote because our resolution could greatly contribute to the solution of the refugee crisis in Europe. Thank you.
Are there any points or motions in the House? Hungary.
Is the delegate aware that developing countries who barely have enough resources to keep their own people alive in minimal conditions can afford to host Syrian refugees? Do you not think they need an extra fund from countries who can provide such a fund for them to intake refugees?
Of course, they might need a fund, but we're not asking for resources from countries which cannot even maintain a decent standard of living in their own countries. We're asking for resources and funds from countries which are self-sustainable and developed.
Are there any other points or motions in the House? Seeing as there are no more points, thank you, delegates.
Now I will yield the floor to the chair.
Is any delegate willing to speak for or against this resolution? Hungary.
Hungary strongly urges against the resolution because Germany did not include the option of countries not having enough funds to take in refugees. They just mentioned that all of the countries involved in the committee should take a part in hosting refugees. Thank you.
Are there any points of information for Hungary?
Point of information.
Granted.
Even though this point had not been made, we would like the delegates to consider amendments instead of voting against the resolution.
Thank you, Germany. Are there any motions for follow-up? Austria.
Motion to follow up.
Granted.
We agree with Germany because the following humanitarian problems need to be resolved urgently.
Thank you, Austria. Are there any other points of information in the House? Seeing as there are none, we will now move to the voting procedures for the whole resolution. All those in favor, please raise your placards. All those against, please raise your placards. All those abstaining. Seeing as the majority of the House votes for the resolution has passed. Clapping is in order. The meeting is now adjourned. We will now move in a 10-minute break and then discuss the next resolution.